Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thank you for watching us tonight. We would like to welcome our new viewers in Chicagoland on AT&T Cable. We hope you like The Factor. Talking Points memo this evening is about President Bush's most vexing problem. Everybody knows that Yasser Arafat embraces terrorism. Mr. Bush certainly knows that. The PLO chief has been encouraging suicide bombers and stockpiling weapons from Iran and other terrorist-friendly countries. Yet Mr. Bush cannot label Arafat a terrorist because the other Arab states would stop cooperating with the USA. Not that they're cooperating all that much now. They're not. But we do have some influence in the region. That influence would vanish if Mr. Bush threw in with the Israelis, and much of Europe would turn against us as well. The hatred of Israel is so intense and worldwide, it is an irrational hatred. As the Israelis will bend, they will negotiate. The PLO will not, at this point anyway. They had a great deal from Ehud Barak, they walked away and resumed attacking women and children. How any person on this earth can support a cause that slaughters civilians is beyond me. It is incomprehensible. You can make all excuses you want, but only barbarians attack women and children. There's no question that some Palestinians will never stop the violence, so deep is their hatred for Israel. It is Arafat's duty to control these fanatics, but in my opinion, he's one of them. He is the top terrorist in the region. President Bush knows Arafat is a liar and a fraud. That's why he hasn't met with him. But he also knows the Arab world supports Arafat, so the dilemma is acute. What do you do? Well, the Bush administration should float a peace plan, as we discussed yesterday, much like the Barak deal that fell through. With something concrete on the table, both sides are given an opportunity to fall back and take a breath. Maybe some kind of compromise can be reached and the United Nations troops dispatched to the hotspots. I know this might sound like a pipe dream, but it's the only solution right now. As for Arafat, what can anyone do? If you kill him, the war escalates and he becomes a martyr. If you banish him, there's no one else to negotiate with. So the terrorist Arafat stays in place even as more babies are killed and maimed. Israel has done wrong as well. But there are no suicide bombers coming out of Tel Aviv. There are no Arab cafes being blown up by young fanatics. The army can be brutal, no question. But at this point, most Israelis, I believe, want peace. Not so for the fanatical PLO terrorists who are endangering the entire world. They want to kill every Jew. The Israelis understand that, and therein lies their desperation. President Bush is facing a problem more than 2,000 years old. It may be unsolvable. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, another view of the situation. Joining us from Washington is James Zogby, president of the Arab American Institute. Mr. Zogby, where am I going wrong?
Well, look, your final point about how to solve it is not too far from where we need to go. And so I wouldn't disagree with you about the need for the potential of UN troops and not just floating a plan, but the U.S. needs to be, I think, forceful and needs to be quite deliberate in engaging both parties with a very specific peace proposal. But, Bill, the rest of your hysterical rhetoric, I think, is both unbecoming, it's unnecessary, and frankly, it's wrong.
All right, let's walk through it.
The fact is that many.
Let's get specific.
You told me that I had a little time here to respond.
No, go ahead. But I want to get specific here. Where
I'm going to do exactly that.
All right.
There are many national liberations and movements around the world that have used deplorable tactics. The Israelis who started the State of Israel were declared terrorists because they bombed hotels and they bombed civilians, and the British put a price on their head. Yitzhak Shamir and Menachem Begin were in fact notorious terrorists. One the British exiled, and the other they wanted to execute. But the fact is that national liberation movements, though they use deplorable tactics and in fact deserve to be condemned for those tactics, need to be understood in terms of the aspirations of the people that they fight for. That was true with Algeria, it was true with Nelson Mandela, and it's true with Yasser Arafat. Terrorist tactics have been used, but he is not the architect of terror, and he is not himself, and it is unfair to simply try to reduce him to a terrorist.
Let me give you some specifics.
He is a symbol of his people, and he needs to be understood as that. Look, the whole Arab world looks at it as Ariel Sharon as a terrorist. You say Israel's not blowing up hotels, but you know what? F-16s do a mighty disastrous job from the air, and so you've got terrorists on the ground versus terrorists in the air. Let's be fair. We have enemies fighting each other, and we have to find a way to solve it. Name calling isn't going to help.
I'm not calling you now. I'm basically telling you what the guy is. Yasser Arafat is a terrorist, and I'll give you concrete proof of that. All right. Just this week, documents were seized in his headquarters. As you know, they were raided by the Israelis, and they smashed through. And the documents were letters from the fanatical Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, which is the suicide bombers, demanding that the Palestinian Authority pay for the bombs and reimburse the families of the suicide bombers. Okay? Now, this document documents are found in Arafat's possession. Now, you know about the ship that came from Iran. You know about the captain of the ship. He just linked it right up to Arafat's right-hand man, Fawad Shibaki. Come on. This is incontrovertible evidence that Yasser Arafat is directing a campaign of terror that targets women and children.
Listen,
how can you justify that?
I do not justify at all, and in fact, if you read what I've written, I condemn the acts of violence because, frankly, I think it hurts the Palestinian cause. But I do not accept what Israel has stolen from an office as real. Look, I've seen Israeli intelligence. Bill, listen. I have seen Israeli intelligence at work before, and I've seen the duplicitous effort that they put out around the world. The fact is that they can do anything they want to call Arafat names, and Palestinians can do anything they want to call Ariel Sharon names.
If it were out of context, I would say that to you. If it were out of context, I would say disinformation is certainly possible.
Name calling is not going to help.
Not a matter of name calling. It's a matter of putting a designation.
Who is surrounding right now Ramallah? Who's occupying the West Bank and Gaza? Who's shooting people in churches in Bethlehem?
Every single day you have suicide bombers targeting women and children,
Every
Mr.
single day
Zogby.
you have people dying at checkpoints because they can't get through, or people being shot in their homes, land being stolen, trees being uprooted, and the very life and hope being sucked out of a whole generation of young Palestinians who simply have no place to go. Let's be fair. There are different kinds of terrorism in the world, Bill, and you can call it anything you want, but the fact is, at the end of the day, we have to find a way to make Israel secure and Palestinians feel more hope and independent.
At the end of the day,
if you want to get there, we can talk about that. But if you want to call names,
here's what you're
we're not going to get anywhere, Bill.
Listen, you're not going to get anywhere anyway unless there's a breakthrough. And Yasser Arafat walked away from the best deal anybody could have gotten at Camp David. You know it. You know he walked away from Barak's deal. That was the best deal the Israelis ever offered anybody. And he walked away because he didn't want the deal. He wanted to commit more violence.
No, that's not true.
You by cloaking this man in some kind of nationalistic fervor, that's the same thing Osama bin Laden does. He says, I'm justified in killing 3,000 people in America because America is attacking Islam, because they're attacking us, and they won't let us do blah, blah, blah. This is exactly what Arafat's doing.
Are you done?
Go ahead.
Okay. There's no comparison at all between bin Laden and Arafat. We don't occupy Afghanistan, and we didn't oppress Osama bin Laden. But in fact, the entire West Bank and Gaza are occupied, and thousands, millions of Palestinians were forced into exile. We need to find a solution to the problem.
How do you explain Arafat walking away from the Barak deal? How do you explain Arafat walking away from the Barak deal?
I'm about to do it. I think we could probably have a conversation here if you'd like.
Go ahead. We don't have all day, Mr. Zogby. I got to get right to the point. How do you explain it?
Trying to help you here. If you read Sunday's New York Times, the top Israeli negotiator at the Taba talks that came after Camp David, Yossi Beilin, made it very clear that the narrative that you described, which is the accepted one today, best deal offered, Arafat walked away, started terrorism, simply isn't true. Even during the Intifada, negotiations were taking place at Taba, and Barak walked away from that. The fact is that what Barak offered as an ultimatum at Camp David was not all that good, and in fact, you wouldn't have accepted it for your people. The Israelis wouldn't have accepted it for their.
I saw it. I read the thing, and I would have accepted it because it would have brought peace. It would have brought peace.
You know why it wouldn't? Because what it would have, and I had a conversation with President Clinton in the Oval Office about it afterwards when he was troubled by it and asked me to understand it. And what I told him was, if you give the Palestinians as your best offer something that was the equivalent of Indian reservations or Bantustans in South Africa, you'll never have peace. They want for themselves what the Israelis have for themselves, a truly sovereign and independent state where there are no checkpoints, where there are no settlements, where there's nothing cutting up their land into little pieces.
Israel has a right to protect itself.
Absolutely, but not a right to protect settlements that were built illegally on Palestinian land.
They would have given 90% of those settlements back. Everybody has to compromise if you want peace, Doctor. Everybody has to compromise.
You can be hysterical but be accurate. They were not giving back 90% of the settlements. It's not true.
All right. Well, look, that's what every single American expert who has seen that says.
That's not true.
And
talk to those who served in the National Security Council, and they'll tell you it wasn't true.
Right. Well, you get them on. I'll put them on tomorrow night. I don't think you can find one. All right. We'll see, Doctor. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Directly ahead, big trial underway. Did one of the Kennedy clan commit murder more than 25 years ago? We'll look at the Skakel murder case in just a few moments.
May help your colon, too. In a recent study, Caltrate helped reduce the risk of recurrence of colon polyps.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly. In the personal story segment tonight, your humble correspondent, that's me, was invited to Cambridge, Massachusetts last night to speak at my alma mater, Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. A full house confronted me, and here are some of the highlights.
My problem with your show is that you pretend to be unbiased and consistent, which you absolutely are not. And so I don't think that's very fair for you to go on TV and mislead people in my great state of Georgia who are conservative, but you just get there, you get them very angry about the government, which if that's your opinion, that's just fine. But I don't understand how you sleep at night knowing you've caused all this angst in good, hardworking, decent people and like people from the state of Georgia.
Well, you're absolutely right. I can't sleep. And tell everybody that it's an opinion-driven program. I have my opinion. We find another opinion that's usually different from mine. We slug it out, and the good people of Georgia can listen and make up their own mind. I mean, it's a very simple formula, and I think we're very fair.
Sometimes I hear from some people that your racial standpoints are skewed.
Skewed?
Skewed, one-sided, maybe to one particular race.
But you haven't seen this for yourself.
I see you bring up the point of reparations in your show often, and I see you bring it up to most of the times to people who are not prepared. I never see you play another point and try to act objective to the point that...
Hold it. Number one, I'm never objective. I'm a news analyst, all right? News analysts aren't objective by their very nature. Number two, you're not watching enough, and you got to watch every night. Number three, I'm against reparations, okay? Now, you're not going to like me probably because I'm against reparations, but we always have a guest opposite me who puts forth, I'm for reparations and this is why. If you don't think they're that good, we'll get you on and, we'll see how you go.
Recently you did a little session. You had an author on Middle Eastern affairs who could not get on NPR. You mentioned that you yourself were banned from there permanently.
They renamed the show All Things Considered Except O'Reilly. They don't want to hear your point of view. It offends them. They take it personally. See, I like to hear the opposite point of view. I like to be challenged. I want to hear what Robert Reich has to say. I want to hear what Al Gore has to say, although he's too afraid to come on The Factor. But I want to hear what he has to say. I understand I speak too fast for NPR, and I told him that I will go on and speak like this if you would like. Yes, I will.
I was interested in your assessment of the virtues of the straight black and white approach to the war on terrorism by our president. But I would like to ask you, what is wrong about having someone give some deep intellectual thought as to why this happened instead of reaching for the gun like a Texas schoolboy cowboy?
There's nothing wrong with understanding the underlying philosophies of your enemy. Nothing wrong with that at all. Now, if George W. Bush wants to take that reading material to bed with him, and he should, but I'm sure he doesn't. But it's not necessary. Anybody who kills civilians in the World Trade Center or blow up babies in Jerusalem Cafe is evil. And you say, well, Wild West Cowboy was needed to send a message. That message needed to be sent that if you do this to us, you're not going to be in power any longer. Taliban, you're out.
You championed very much about securing our borders and said it was not a very politically correct thing to do. Can you kind of elaborate on what's happened with that and, if you're still championing that?
Okay. They are sending troops to the border. And that's solely, I think, because of the factor, because nobody else, and I mean nobody else, in the media would touch it. The federal government's mandate is to protect us, okay? That's their number one job, protect us. You can't have 3 million people doing the samba across the border every year. And that's exactly what's happening. These guys go, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Come on. What other country in the world does this? Nobody wants to get into China. Yeah, you got guys everywhere. Nobody wants to get in. We have one border patrol agent for every 300 miles in Canada. All right? Moose are coming down. Hey, there's no problem. We're going to get out of Minneapolis and have a party tonight. And then we'll go right back and no one will know.
I was wondering if you believe Yasser Arafat actually wants peace. And secondly, what are the Israelis trying to accomplish by putting a tank basically in his living room?
Well, look, I just heard tonight that Yasser Arafat is going to do a remake with Yoko Ono of Give Peace a Chance. Big album, CD. Come on. Yasser Arafat doesn't want peace. He's in it for Yasser Arafat. The reason he didn't sign the Barack thing, as I said, was because they thought they'd kill him. Look, that situation is so out of control right now that even I can't solve it, all right? I don't even know what to do.
In the past 18 months, approximately 2,000 Israelis and Palestinians have died in the conflict. And on every front page and on your show, we talk about the fairness with the Israeli side and the Arab side. But in those same 18 months, 3 million Africans have died of a preventable disease, AIDS, and I'm wondering why that is never talked about, and how do we get that back on the American agenda?
Right, that's a good question. I'm going to try to be politically correct a little bit here, okay? Africa is out of control. Is that politically correct? All right? That whole continent's out of control. So Americans who pay attention know that. They know that. So you're right. AIDS, crazy. But are you going to go over there and put the condom on the guy? Okay? Are you going to do that? Because the guy doesn't want to wear the condom. You can send all the condoms you want over there. He doesn't want to wear it. Because in his little village or whatever, you're not a man if you wear a condom. Okay? So he's not going to wear it. So this is what you're dealing with. How do you get through? How do you change behavior when life expectancy is 36?
Was the whole issue with the 11:30 and Ted Koppel, did it mean anything? Was it an important issue or not?
The Nightline thing was very interesting because there's a big change going on in America in the media. And I don't know whether you address it at the Kennedy School or not, but the old stuff is out. It's gone. The world has changed. So you know your information, if you're interested at all, by the computer, by All News Radio, and by the 24-hour cable TV. So you know it already. So why are you staying up to midnight to see Ted pretty much tell you what you already know? Now, yes, they've done very good work, Congo war and this thing, but how many people in America care about the war in the Congo? Can I have a show of hands here, please? Does anybody care about the war in the Congo? 5 guys. Okay. That means your Nielsen rating is 0. All right, you got nobody. So they have to change. Koppel has to change, and he can do it. This is what I mean about being timid. Ted Koppel's twice as smart as I am. I've covered a lot of stuff. I've been in 56 countries. He's done 4 times as much as I've done, all right? He could do a news analysis show. He could come on at 11:30 and go, damn it, this is what I think, Ted. And people would listen. People would listen, okay? And he's got the credibility to do it. Why doesn't he do it? Why? Because once you do that, you throw yourself up to people who don't like you, are going to call you names, they're going to come down, and they don't want the hassle. They don't want the hassle.
Well, there you have it. Now, on May 6th, we'll play the rest of the byplay for you in a special called O'Reilly versus Harvard. And there's some good stuff we didn't show you. Well, those people didn't like me up there. And when we come back, do school authorities have the right to critique your child's physique? To tell you he's too fat or too thin? It's happening next.